and to leave from Ottawa to like overseas, it's cheaper to do that than from Ottawa to here.
Tonight, the federal government approved the merger of First Air and Canadian North, but what will it mean for Nunavummiut traveling in from the Arctic?
So it's my responsibility to learn so that I can teach, because when you know who you are, you can connect to the land, you can connect to the people around you.
Yukon honors the legacy of a master carver with the restoration of a gifted totem pole.
It's a really good feeling to be able to actually listen to a conversation and understand it now. I feel like I'm a part of something.
And how a group in Winnipeg found a unique way to learn and pass on the Ojibwe language. Good evening, welcome to APTN National News. I'm Dennis Ward.
And I'm Melissa Ridgen. The decision by the federal cabinet to let the North's two largest airlines, First Air and Canadian North, merge will be felt in Nunavut for generations to come.
Our Ken Driscoll went over to the Iqaluit airport to find out how concerned the customers are.
The ice is mostly gone from Frobisher Bay, which means that for a few months, ships can deliver cargo to Iqaluit. For the rest of the year, everything that comes in and out of Nunavut's capital comes from here, the Iqaluit airport. Two airlines provide most of the service to Nunavut, First Air and Canadian North. Now that the federal cabinet has approved a merger, a move that the Competition Board of Canada called a monopoly, customers are concerned.
I'm a little bit worried. Right now it's pretty costly to head out anywhere in the north and in the south. And of course, living on an island, we have no choice but to fly out.
Because every community in Nunavut is a fly-in community, Nunavummiut depend on these airlines. One of the Iqaluit MLAs has been hearing it from his constituents.
I share a lot of the concerns as the rest of that many Nunavummiut have also expressed. I understand that there are many efficiencies when it comes to mergers, but on the other hand, I'm not completely convinced of the new airline passing on those efficiencies on to the customers.
That's the airline's argument, that by combining they'll be able to save money. The federal cabinet approval included 31 requirements to hold the pricing status quo. Thing is, many say that the status quo wasn't all that great to begin with.
It's very expensive, and for me, like a single mother, it's very hard to try and live with my children because it's so expensive. And to leave from Ottawa to like overseas, it's cheaper to do that than from Ottawa to here. And that's kind of not fair.
Elle is right. You could fly on Air Canada from Ottawa to London, England tomorrow, and you could do it for $850 one way. Iqaluit to Ottawa one way on the same day, $940. The regulations on the merger deal are supposed to hold the status quo, which is worrying to Nunavut residents. That status quo was expensive in the first place. Ken Driscoll, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
This morning, Minister Carolyn Bennett announced $9.1 million to help build the new Indigenous Legal Lodge at the University of Victoria. The centre will be built as an addition to the existing UVic Law Building. The Indigenous Legal Lodge is intended to bring people together to learn about and practice Indigenous laws. It fulfills the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's call to action number 50, which asks the federal government to fund the development, use and understanding of Indigenous law.
As nations are reconstituting themselves and moving on the path to self-determination, they want to have their laws based in the legal traditions and customs of their people. And so to have that ability to develop the research and then be able to be that wise counsel is, I think, hugely exciting. And then there are so many students who are very keen to be able to become knowledgeable about what the history of their nation was.
In July 1971, the BC Centennial Totem Pole was received in Whitehorse from the BC government. 48 years later, the totem pole gets a new life and a new ceremony to recognize the importance of the territory's cultural heritage. APTN's Chris McIntyre has the story.
They gathered outside the Yukon government's main building for the unveiling of the fully restored Centennial Totem Pole, carved by the hereditary Tsimshian chief, William Jeffrey. British Columbia gave it to the Yukon in 1971, 100 years after joining Confederation. Instead of allowing the pole to deteriorate over time, it was restored to retain its cultural significance and honor the skill of William Jeffrey. Jeannie Dendies is the Yukon Minister of Tourism and Culture. She says the restored pole is a symbol of Indigenous and Canadian relations.
This totem pole is a symbol of cultural revitalization. It's really brought new skills to the territory in the restoration of a totem pole, which is not usually done, but it's again it symbolizes that living culture that we have, and so it was really important to restore this totem pole.
I can't think of a better way to celebrate my very first Yukon People's Indigenous Day than being here on this special event.
Monica Jeffrey is William Jeffrey's granddaughter. She used to watch her grandfather carve. She's happy that cultural protocols were followed to share his work with Yukoners.
You should really find out who you are dealing with. You have to find out, first of all, give them recognition, acknowledgement, and the second of all, you have to ask them what they would like to see. You have to gain their permission. So, and really working with them and working on a collaborative effort. So those are some of the initial stages, and I want to see that at, I often say, at inception.
Sarah Jeffrey is Monica Jeffrey's daughter.
It is important to me as a young woman and the next generation to carry on the culture and the traditions of our people and to teach the next generation too. So it's my responsibility to learn so that I can teach, because when you know who you are, you can connect to the land, you can connect to the people around you.
Sarah says she has never met her great-grandfather, but she does feel his presence through his work.
I think he would be really proud of the work that we're doing, and I think he would be proud that we're doing generational work. He did this work, he started this work, my grandmother continued it, my mother continues it, and now it's my job to carry it on for my generation and teach the future generations how to carry it on.
Like her mother, Sarah is proud of what William Jeffrey started and that her family is doing what they can to continue his legacy. Chris McIntyre, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
I think her great-grandpa would be very proud of her. We want to hear what you think, as always. Here's how you can continue the conversation. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca. You can find us online at aptnnews.ca and on youtube.com/APTN News. You can also follow APTN News on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for more Indigenous news.
A new awareness campaign by Amnesty International seeks to dismantle stereotypes by highlighting the success of Indigenous figures from Quebec. Lindsay Richardson explains.
Maxime Lizotte is no stranger to the kitchen. At only 22, he's ventured into the world of boreal or New Quebec cuisine.
Donc la cuisine boréale, c'est ça, c'est un retour aux sources. C'est d'aller chercher nos saveurs, ceux qui poussent dans les forêts, ceux qui poussent sur le bord des lacs, des rivières, dans les montagnes. C'est vraiment d'aller chercher nos saveurs propres au Québec, des saveurs qui étaient la médecine de hier, finalement.
Moose tataki with a pine emulsion, maple salmon gravlax, corn cake with apple cream. Lizotte's spreads need to be seen to be believed. The idea of an Indigenous chef finding success in Quebec, however, according to Amnesty International's new campaign, you have to believe it to see it. The brainchild of marketing students, this newly released French-language campaign sheds light on the positive contributions of Indigenous Quebecers like Lizotte or Dr. Stanley Vallant, the first Indigenous surgeon to be trained in Quebec. Together, the series of 5 videos and a guidebook titled You Don't Look Native aim to dismantle outdated stereotypes by avoiding them altogether, instead showcasing extraordinary feats in arts, politics, and culture.
Aujourd'hui, on n'est pas nécessairement, comme je disais dans mon entrevue, on n'est pas nécessairement la peau foncée, les cheveux longs, le gros nez. On n'est pas nécessairement un imposteur de vouloir se réapproprier une culture perdue parce qu'on est métissé. C'est un des gros travaux qu'il y a à faire ici au Québec en ce qui a trait à qu'est-ce qu'un autochtone.
Mikisu Awashish, an 18-year-old hockey player, says it's important to circulate positive messages to youth living in communities who may feel trapped by societal expectations.
On fait ça, oui, pour le moment présent, mais c'est surtout pour le futur. Pour les jeunes qui vivent dans les communautés, puis les jeunes qui auront des enfants, parce que la société évolue, la société change continuellement, puis je pense que ça doit faire partie.
Amnesty International also explores women's contribution to this dialogue, including Elissa P. Isaac, a singer-songwriter from Salouet, and Marie-Ève Bordelot, a lawyer and Commissioner of Indigenous Affairs for the City of Montreal. Bordelot says the finished project is an indispensable resource for Quebecers.
To me, releasing such an important tool in order to demystify discrimination against Indigenous people, I mean, it's an act of reconciliation. I hope that this kind of tool, this kind of project will be spread around in Canada.
Meantime, campaign videos are available to stream online, challenging preconceptions, one view at a time. Lindsay Richardson, APTN National News, Montreal.
Great campaign.
Great looking food.
Great looking spread
Boreal
there, too.
cuisine, count me in.
Coming up, we'll take you to a women's empowerment gathering.
That's after the break, but first here's a look at Wednesday's forecast. Starting in the East Coast, we've got 18 in cloud in Fredericton, 14 in sunshine in St. John's, 22 in sunny in Happy Valley of Goose Bay, 8 in Nain and rain, 24 in St. Jovite, 27 and rain in Montreal, 30 in rain in Sarnia, 25 and rain in North Bay, 21 in cloud in Big Trout Lake, 27 in sunshine in Thunder Bay, 18 in rain in Thompson, 21 in rain in Norway House, 28 in cloud and rain in Gimli, 27 in cloudy in Winnipeg, 25 in rain in Regina, 23 in rain in Saskatoon, 20 in sunshine in La Ronge, 18 in sunny in Uranium City. Welcome back. Women from the Alexander First Nation in Alberta came together at their first women's empowerment gathering. The goal was to honor missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and to find new ways to prevent them from becoming victims. APTN's Chris Stewart has that story.
There was a good crowd at the Alexander First Nations Social Services Building. It was a learning day on murdered and missing women and girls, to hear from families of victims and to learn how not to become a victim themselves. Rita Arcand is a counselor from Alexander. She's also a social worker and an elder.
The prophecy is the women are the healers. Women got to heal themselves first, and then we can help our men and children and our communities.
Several female members of the RCMP came out to speak. Constable Kristen Groboski is an expert in human trafficking. She answered a lot of questions, offering advice to stay safe and to report a disappearance quickly. You don't need to wait 24 hours.
Our unit is there to help people. We're trying to build trust with individuals so that they can come forward if they're being exploited, but also that it's really important for the public to educate themselves on sexual exploitation because it's happening in our communities.
Cheryl Savoy is also an Alexander Band counselor. She says all of the community's leaders need to be involved.
I think dialogue in general is healthy, overdue and necessary because we need to bring the issues to the table and hear from the people, and that's the grassroots people. The women need to be heard and certainly need that understanding that leadership is listening.
The consensus. The discussions are a step towards stopping violence against women and girls.
I thought it was really, really amazing, really good questions, and I think overall, hopefully it'll start a really good conversation and people can reach out anytime to our unit if they have anything further they want to ask.
And I'm so honored to see all these women here today. I can feel it. It feels powerful, empowering for the soul, so I'm really happy.
Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Alexander First Nation.
The community of Peace River in northern Alberta held their annual powwow and gathering, but it wasn't just any powwow. People from across Turtle Island traveled to the Peace River County just to be a part of it all. There was the usual forms of dancing, and there were hand games, and the Métis could not be left out. Missing and murdered Indigenous women were honored, as well as fire evacuees who lost their homes in northern Alberta. Samantha Canapace of Sturgeon Lake is this year's Junior Princess.
I get to dance for those who don't get to dance, and those who need the healing and Yeah, and to represent my title.
Former Prime Minister Paul Martin was in Île-à-la-Crosse, Saskatchewan, to launch a new project with the community. It's an initiative for high school students to plant the seeds of traditional ways and entrepreneurship. APTN's Priscilla Wolf has that story.
The Martin Family Initiative has been working with schools across Canada for almost a decade, but this week launched a new initiative.
We have an entrepreneurial program that essentially teaches how to be in business. It was our first program. It's close to 10 years old. We're in 45 schools across the country. But the issue, the question of greenhouses, we're now marrying them with the schools in which we're involved. And really the first one where this is really happening is here in Île-à-la-Crosse.
The initiative, the Greenhouse Project, is high school based and uses horticulture and entrepreneurship in curriculum. Martin hopes this will be the first of many. Starting this fall, the high school students will learn hands-on in the greenhouse and learn how to use their produce to build a business.
We all understand that food in the north is very expensive, and that oftentimes, whether it's fresh vegetables or fresh fruit, those things are not available. So as a result, we have said that one of the things that we've got to do in an entrepreneurial way is to build greenhouses that can use solar energy and that can be spread throughout the north. That will enable resolve to have that problem of food security.
Local youth junior mayor Jeremy Corgle thinks his community being chosen to launch the project is encouraging.
It's a huge step in our community with making more partnerships with more people around the province and around the country, and I think it's a big step just for our school in general, just because we do have a lot of opportunities, and getting the former Prime Minister of Canada here and helping us and being a partner with us, that's just a huge honor, and it humbles our community just that much more.
Local Métis leader Jim DeRocher says this project can help the community return to healthy eating habits.
We've been depending on store-bought food, and it's not as nutritious, and I always worry about all the stuff that's going into the food, that's being processed, and I think that might be one of the reasons why we have such a high rate of sugar diabetes and cancer.
When the horticulture curriculum starts up here, this is an example of the produce that they'll be growing in their greenhouse. Priscilla Wolf, APTN National News, Île-à-la-Crosse, Saskatchewan.
Now here's a preview of a story we'll have coming later this week from northwestern Quebec.
Upon first glance, this may look like any other field. But here, the vegetation has yet to fully overtake the remnants of the former St. Marc-de-Figuerie residential school. It can be said that the remnants of the school also still lie within many of its survivors, which is why they have come back here once again, this time to dance on what's left of its foundation. I'm Tom Fenario, and I'll have the full story later this week on APTN National News.
A class of students studying Ojibwe has released a children's album.
We'll have that listen after the break, but first here's the rest of Wednesday's weather forecast. To northern Alberta. We've got 24 in rain in Fort McMurray, 21 in rain in Grand Prairie, 18 and rain in Red Deer and Lethbridge, 23 in cloudy in Medicine Hat. Tofino's rainy and 16, 19 and rain in Victoria, 17 and rain in Fort Nelson. Prince Rupert, sunny and 19. Sunshine for Dawson City and 23, 22 and sunny in Mayo. 15s for Wrigley and Fort Simpson and rain there, 17 and rain in Yellowknife. Inuvik is 12 and sunshine, Colville Lake, sunny and 12. 7 and cloudy in Cambridge Bay, 13 and rain in Repulse Bay, 12s for Chesterfield and Whale Cove. 6s for Pangertown and Clyde River and sunshine there, 15 and sunny in Iqaluit. Welcome back. A Manitoba college is working to do its part to keep Indigenous languages alive and thriving. This past year, for the first time ever, Red River College offered an Ojibwe language program, and while students learned the basics, one group decided to take things a step further and released a children's album featuring brand new songs. Here's Brittany Hobson with that story.
Music has the power to invoke emotion, heal, and in many instances, educate others. That's what this group learned while studying Ojibwe at Red River College. They started the year as students and are now ending it as teachers.
We had this idea that we would write our own songs and with our own music, our own lyrics, so that the kids could learn that what we were doing.
Sherry Shorting, along with 3 of her classmates, created the group Nagamuda, meaning let's all sing. After learning how to say basic words and phrases in Ojibwe, they soon found themselves creating tunes, like this one, called the Animal Song.
I always wanted to do something like this, so to incorporate our language into a group is even better because we're teaching people and we're learning as we go along.
It's the first time Shorting is speaking her language. Her father went to residential school, where she says he was punished when he spoke Ojibwe. For many years, Shorting felt like a part of her was missing.
I questioned myself, like, who am I? Who am I really? And now that I've taken this, I feel like I'm being, like, it's almost like being reunited. It's a really good feeling to be able to actually listen to a conversation and understand it now. I feel like I'm a part of something.
Joy Phillips grew up around the language in her home community of Hollow Water, but could never pick up enough of it to understand. In the past year, that has changed.
Oh, I'm a much better eavesdropper. I can really pick apart a lot of what they're saying, and I'll try to like chime in with using it and answering them in it. I surprise my mom and my uncle every now and then. Surprise myself too sometimes, but...
Phillips came to the course after completing her Bachelor of Education. The 29-year-old hopes to work in an immersion school. She sees the album as a teaching tool for other educators.
When I would give my ideas, I came from a perspective of how I could use these songs in my future classroom.
The album has 8 songs in total. It was produced with the help of their instructor and the college. Shorting says it was a surreal experience.
To actually hold that finished product in your hand and to see us on it, and it's like a really good feeling.
The group hopes to create an album for adults in the future, but for now, they are enjoying playing these little catchy tunes. Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Catchy tunes indeed.
I just had a birthday. You could have bought me that for my birthday.
Next year, we'll be looking for the CD. I'm sure there's another celebration
Christmas is also
you.
Coming up.
That's your APTN News for this Tuesday.
For much more, including an exclusive story on a baby that was targeted by CFS just 90 minutes after birth in British Columbia, visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Have a great night.
And I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for tuning in. Stick around for The Laughing Drum, the final episode to be hosted by Tim Fontaine. We'll see you back here tomorrow.